Aloha and welcome. I'm your host, Sean Lether. If you're watching us on YouTube, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. In addition to being a beautiful soul and a treasured friend, today's guest, Michelle Clare, is a speaker, author, and certified medium. Featured on Coast to Coast AM, Amazon Prime, The Shift Network, Humanities Teams, and Gaia TV, she is also an angel intuitive spiritual coach, medical intuitive, and energetic healer, as well as being certified in human interaction technology. Over the course of 11 years, Michelle survived 3 near-death experiences, which profoundly transformed her life and deepened her connection to the spirit world. Michelle's journey is one of resilience, divine connection, and awakening. She is passionate about sharing insight on soul plans, near-death experiences, and the delicate terrain surrounding suicide, offering hope, healing, and deeper understanding of life's sacred purpose. Michelle is the author of the newly released book, 101 Ways to Set Your Soul on Fire, Messages from a Medium to Ignite Your Soul Purpose, and it's available on Amazon. You can learn more about Michelle at her website, which is michelleclaire.net. And also, if you didn't catch Michelle's first talk with Hawaiian IANDS, we will stick a link in the chat so you can catch up on her first experiences that she shared with us. Welcome, Michelle. I'm so happy to see you again.
Hi, Sean. I am so happy to see you again and to be able to be here to share with everyone in this beautiful community tonight.
Great. Well, why don't maybe you could give a brief overview, for people who have not seen you before, and then go on to what you have been doing since we talked last, and your book, and all the amazing lessons you've learned.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'm happy to see new faces because there were quite a few new faces, and it's always great to see the familiar faces. So, thank you all for joining us tonight. A little bit about my background. I was raised Catholic, and around the age of 12, my grandfather transitioned. And when he passed, I realized that he and I were still communicating. So I would share these messages with my mom, and my mom would say to me, "That's what you think Grandpa would say if you were still here." So I quickly realized not everyone was having this communication that was still ongoing. As time went on, my grandmother transitioned. I was still receiving messages from her then. And again, no one else in my family seemed to be able to be doing this. But it wasn't until I had my 3 near-death experiences that I actually really embraced my mediumship. And the one that I really want to focus on a little bit tonight is my 3rd near-death experience, because out of the 3 that I had, and we did talk about these last time, so you can go back and watch them on the link that they're going to put in the chat underneath. The one with the 3rd near-death experience, at that point in time, that one I was given the choice to stay or to go. And this is really important to know because as a medium, I've been working professionally for quite a few years, and I'm able to connect in with people, their soul plan, the lessons that they came to learn, not just their loved ones on the other side, but their angels and their life guides. And what we start to realize the more times that we're doing this work is that our souls came here with a plan, and none of us are accidentally here on this planet right now at this time. Even if you tell me your mom was 14, she put you up for adoption, you were an accident, the answer is no. That's how your soul chose to come in here. So when I had this 3rd near-death experience, at this point in my life, I had 3 kids. I had a 5-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 10-year-old. I'd been married for a number of years, and I was getting ready to put up a candle that had batteries in the bottom of it and just replace it and then go pick up my daughter at school. My younger 2 were at home in the kitchen with me. As I started to climb to the top of the ladder, I felt it shift, and I immediately thought, this is going to hurt. In that moment, I was yanked out of my body, not in a painful way, but in a very fast way. Think bungee cord fast, right? Pulled out, turned around, facing my body in the ladder, suspended in the air, like a freeze frame in a movie. And as I was there, I started to notice again, I was in this timeless space, this blissfulness. I was standing with these three people that I did not know, but they felt like very close family or friends. There was an Asian male, an Egyptian woman, and then a Hawaiian man. As I was standing with them in this time that was standing still, I felt them say to me, "What do you want to do? Do you want to stay or do you want to go?" And I was very much in my head still at this point in time. And I was trying to understand how I had forever to decide what I wanted to do when I knew my body was going to hit the floor in just a second. So at that point in time, I saw a beautiful angel come in. This angel was dressed in this deep red and gold. And when I saw that angel, I knew that it was here to either take me home to the heavenly realm, which so many NDEers call that heavenly realm. It's home. It feels like home. It's where our souls belong after we finish this experience. So I knew I was either going home with this angel or it was going to shift something so that I could stay. And as I stood in this blissful energy, I saw my younger two kids. And in that moment, I decided that I wanted to stay. I wanted to be their mother longer. I wanted to have this experience on planet Earth longer. And as I made this decision, I was downloaded with a lot of information about, okay, you can stay, but you need to know you need to go back and you need to do your mediumship and help people in the way that you can help them. They told me that my marriage would most likely end in divorce and that I had trauma ahead. And as I stood in this blissful heavenly realm, they were laying out these challenges that were coming for me. I knew it wasn't going to be rainbows and butterflies and unicorns. And yet, on a soul level, I literally remember saying, okay, send me in. I'm not done. I want this opportunity at this human life. So what happened was I ended up falling off of the ladder. I hit the back of my head on the corner of the granite island. I had a 5.5-inch skull fracture, a brain bleed. I lost my equilibrium, my taste, my smell, part of my hearing. But I literally survived this fall by 1/2 inch. That was the difference of staying in this world or going to the next one. So as you can imagine, I had a lot of physical injury. Anyone who's ever had a traumatic brain injury knows that this is a long, long process of healing. I was taken to the hospital. I was in ICU in the hospital for about 10 days total. And then I came home. And as I came home, sometimes people who have NDEs receive spontaneous healings, like Marjani, where she had her NDE and then she came back and was getting better and better. My NDEs never worked out that way. I always came back and I had massive human physical healing that I need to do. In the house that I lived in, we had very, very big, wide hallways. And I was literally bouncing down the hallway off one wall to the next wall to the next wall, just trying to get down the hallway because my equilibrium was so bad. At this point in time, my son was 5 and my daughter was 8. My oldest was 10. So this accident happened on 11/1/11. For those of you who like ones and numerology, you know, the one is all about new beginnings, and it truly created a brand new start for me. I got through the holidays after I got home, and then January of 2012 came around. And at that point in time, my son, who was 5 years old, started getting depressed because he said, "Mom, I didn't do anything to help you." And we said, "Josh, that's not true. You opened the door for the policeman." And he said, "I didn't need to be there. Sophie could have done this without me." He had tried to call 911 and we believed his call hadn't gone through, but my daughters had. So he started getting like this heavy weight. He would tell my mom, my mother-in-law, myself that he didn't need to be there. He hadn't helped me. The end of January 2012, my grandfather, who had passed away when I was 12 years old, came into me to see me in my first big mediumship visit after this accident. I have only had one person manifest to me from the other side of my life, and it was him. And he literally manifested in front of me in the kitchen where I had had my accident. I looked at him and I said, "It has been so long since I've seen you." And he just looked at me and smiled and said, "I knew it would seem like that to you." because he knew that where he was, there was no time or space or distance between us. And for me, it felt like it had been decades since I had seen his face. As he was in my kitchen, we talked about my accident and my head injury. And then he said to me, "You need to get the 911 recording. There's something on there that you should know." And at this point in time, I had seen them, on the 5 o'clock news or whatever, but I didn't know that I could order that. So I went down to the police department and ordered it. It took a couple weeks to come in. But what happened was it came in and I put it in the computer to play it. And I heard them say 911, what's your emergency? And in his little broken voice, I heard Josh say, "Sophie, what do I say?" And he laid the phone down. For the next minute and a half, 911 was trying to get their attention, asking them if they could hear them, what was happening. You could hear my son in the background say to his sister that he was going to go push the panic alarm button on the house to get help for me. And she said, "Hold on, let me try calling 911." She hung up the phone, redialed, and then the second call comes on, and it's her call going through to a different dispatcher. And they ended up actually even connecting her to the fire truck that was already en route because my son's call had gone through. When he came home from kindergarten that day, I said to him, I said, "Josh," I said, "your call went through. Help was coming." And in that moment, it was as though I had lifted this 10,000-pound weight off this 5-year-old little boy. You could see his self-worth and his confidence come back in. And in those moments, honestly, it was very emotional for me, but being able to see the gift that heaven in essence was able to give him, that my grandfather came through from the other side with information that I didn't even know was available. And it was really cute the way that he would express this. We would go out to eat. The waitress would say, "How was your day?" And he'd be like, "Great, my 911 call went through," right? And she'd just kind of look at him because who knows what that means. But what happens that I was able to really embody at that point in time was this mediumship that I had agreed to in my third near-death experience. I literally watched it change the life of someone that I couldn't love more, one of my children. And I saw how the other side had information that was not available to me. And my grandfather was able to do that. He changed the life of someone he had never met on this planet by the information that he gave me. So as time went on, I did what most people would do. As I was healing, I was getting more information from spirit world and connecting to other people's loved ones that were not my own. So I went to counseling because, what else are you going to do, right? And as spirit would do it, it would have it. They took me to this amazing counselor who said to me, "Michelle, what a gift. We need to get you a mentor." And so I started in the mentoring and I worked on that for a few years. But what I found out is that when we open up to realize that none of us are living this life alone, the help from the angelic realm, the help from the life guides, the help from our loved ones on the other side, it is really all around us. And it might show up that day in a feather laying on your front doormat. It might show up as the song on the radio. It might show up as the feeling of love that washes over you. But it became so important for me to start sharing the message with people that none of us are here living this life alone. As I continue down my path to grow my mediumship abilities and be able to truly follow through on what was my soul agreement, that I would come here to help people with this ability that I have, my marriage really started to dissolve and fall apart. We know that about 80% of NDEers, if they are married at the time of that NDE, their marriages usually end. And it's really quite simple. It's because you can't have that experience and come back as the same person. No one who touches that heavenly realm can return to the person that they were before that happened. So with that being said, we also know that about 60% of people or more that have had NDEs come back with psychic mediumship abilities and gifts, heightened intuition. It doesn't mean they're going to use it professionally like I do, but they have this ability because they've literally touched the other side. So as I went down this path, following literally my soul agreement, the contract that I made so that I'd have the opportunity to come back here, my marriage continued to dissolve and go in different directions. And my life guides were right. It completely did end in divorce. They had also told me that I had more trauma ahead. About 2 years ago, my life partner passed by suicide, which as a medium is something that I find very challenging because there were the people who said to me, but you're a psychic medium. How did you not see this coming? My answer to that is we're not supposed to know everything. But what happened when he passed, I want to touch on this for a minute because this is really important in soul plans. And this is something that we definitely want to talk about tonight. I had spoken with him that morning, and he, was telling me everything was great. I was out of town. I said, I can't wait to get back to you tonight. Our flight was delayed. I was with my daughter, and I texted him, and there was no response. At that point in time, he was at work, so I just figured he was with a client, and I would talk to him later. I did know he had depression. There had been a couple times where he had just had to turn off his phone, his computer, lock his door and sleep in his room for 2 or 3 days. And then he would come back out and he would be willing to, connect with the world and more of himself. I want to say as a side note, he had tried medication. It made it worse for him. So he was not on medication when this happened. But I got home and he wasn't responding. So I thought, well, maybe he's having, the beginning of one of these spells. The next day, same thing. I called, I texted, I emailed. There was no response from him. I called his work and they said that he had called in sick. So I drove by his house and his youngest daughter, who was in law school, wasn't wanting to meet me yet at that point in time. And I was okay with that. So I saw her car out front and his, and I just figured he was having, one of these times and it was okay. So that night we were supposed to go to a party and I got to the party and everyone asked where he was. And I just said, I thought he was having a hard time. I get home from the party that night, somewhere around midnight, and I'm in my bathroom. I'm getting ready for bed and I see him come in, not manifested in human form the way my grandfather did, but I clearly see him in my eyes. I can tell you what he was wearing. I can feel him standing behind me. I knew this was mediumship. And he looked at me and he said, "You sure are beautiful." And as he said this, my body started to give out like we do when we're in shock. I was able to make it to my bed. And he laid next to me and he said, "I wanted to be the one to tell you." This was how I found out he had taken his life from him. A few hours later, I texted his sister in the middle of the night, and it took a couple hours to get a response from her where she said, "I'm sorry to be the one to tell you, but he took his life." The reason why this is really important is because earlier I started with saying, in that heavenly realm, I chose to come back here. And my life guide said to me, it's not going to be easy. There's going to be a divorce, most likely. There is more trauma ahead. And yet, in that heavenly realm where everything is perfect, loving, you know that this is an experience that your soul wants to have. You choose to come here. And so, even being given these red flags or these warnings as you would, I still came back in. I will honestly tell you, I was not prepared for the level of trauma or grief that I had around his suicide, even though I had been working as a medium. I knew he had been met with light and love and compassion. Here's one of the most beautiful things that you find out from people who have had NDEs. It doesn't matter how old you are, your gender, your religion, how you died, what you believed in. We are all met with love and compassion on the other side. And having had the experience of working as a medium for many years, I knew that this was his story too, and that he had been met with that same love and compassion that so many others had that I had been connected with. So as I had to start moving through the grief of his transition, which absolutely took me by surprise, and his family and his friends, none of us were expecting this, and he wasn't giving us any signs at that point in time. What I found was there is no way to bypass the human grief. So even with my mediumship abilities, with the tools that I had, with the clients that I had walked through this and talked through this and read through many, many times, when it came to me on a personal level, there was no way for me to bypass the human experience. And I think that's really important for all of us to know, because whether we know the details of our soul plan and the true reasons why our soul came to be here, we came for the human experience. We came for the highs. We came for the lows. We came for the moments that you've never felt more alive, as well as the moments that you find yourself on your knees. And that's because this life is about the contrast and the experiences that we don't have in that heavenly realm. And so when we allow ourselves to be human and play human, because we are all spirits having this human experience for truly what is just the blink of an eye in the scope of eternity, we get to realize that we're here for a reason and a purpose and a mission. And it's really always coming back to, how do we love ourselves and others through challenging situations, right? And that might be if you're in an abusive relationship, you're loving yourself and you're leaving. Or maybe you need to learn to say no to people because your plate is overflowing with things that you can never get to them all. And so saying no is a way of loving yourself. But one of the biggest challenges is learning to love ourselves through the contrast here on this planet. And yet we know that our souls came here with part of that as a purpose. After Gary's transition by suicide, I really started to dive deeper into soul plans, because I, like many of you, was probably wondering, why did this happen to me? Why did I experience this? Did I really choose this? I remember them telling me I had more trauma coming in my third near-death experience, but I don't remember them telling me it was going to be this. And so as I went into this, I started doing life between life regressions. I started tapping into the information as a medium, and really wanting to find out more of the details of my soul plan, specifically with Gary's. What I found was no one is ever 100% leaving by suicide. There are certainly soul plans that are more likely to include that possibility, and his was one of them. But the soul agreement with Gary and I was this: if he chose to leave that way, I would be somebody who would be able to share more messages with it and maybe reach more people than another person would be able to do. And the other flip side of that for me was that in my relationship with Gary, I felt a love that I had never felt in my 25-year marriage. So once again, going back to our lesson is always love, and learning that even in those deep, deep moments of grief, even in those moments of when we feel broken, we have come here to learn and to grow on a soul level. And not only are we growing, but the people around us are growing. I was able to see that my soul plan with my kids was that they chose to come here and be my children so that they could anchor me in. They knew I was going to have multiple opportunities to leave, but I kept coming back for them. And I'm sure many of you who have kids or someone that you love so much in your life, you know that you would choose that. One of the questions that I get asked a lot as a medium, and I feel like it's really important to share this with you tonight, is, did my loved one have a choice? Did they have the chance to go to that heavenly realm or stay? And they're like, I'm out. I want to say a couple things about this. In my second near-death experience, it was revealed to me that there are at least 3 levels that I'm aware of that we would have that opportunity. Number 1, can the body even sustain life? So if your body cannot sustain life, and if it has been a traumatic injury, a car accident, whatever this is, there really is no other decision, right? That soul is going home. The second part is, let's say the body can sustain life. Then the soul is like, well, if I get the choice to stay or go, who's going to follow through with the soul agreements that I've made here? So for me, was my sister going to raise my kids? Was one of my best friends going to step in? What was that going to look like? And then that third level is truly between that soul and God's source, the divine. And one of the things that Spirit has made very clear to me specifically about suicide is that if that soul leaves any crack of an opening, an intervention will occur, whether that is a human being able to ring the doorbell or smile or make a difference, or spirit world intervening. But at some point, there are souls like Gary's that shut down so much that there was literally no intervention possible in spirit world or human world at that point in time. So just knowing that it wasn't etched in stone, but being able to see that even though there was this challenge, he was still taken with light, love, great compassion. And there was still a purpose for me to be in this relationship, to number one, first and foremost, feel a type of love that I didn't even know was possible. But then secondly, to be able to share this with others so that they can have this connection with their loved ones and know that grief is not a linear path. It is all over the place. And depending where you are in your journey, depending on what you're grieving, your process is going to look different. Life, this human life, the contrast that is here, it's filled with so many, what I would call many deaths, right? Like many little deaths. Sometimes it is the washing machine dies. Sometimes it's bigger. We lose a job, the dog dies. We lose family, we lose friends, but really starting to understand that in the bigger picture, one of the things that I love to share with people is the acronym SEE. So when we see the bigger picture, what we're knowing, the first S is we are all souls having a human experience, right? The next E is going to be everyone sees life through their own lens. So even if you have identical twins who are raised the same way, they're going to have a different lens. And then the third E is really to realize everyone is doing their best. And so when we see SEE, the whole picture, we have more room for grace and compassion for ourselves and for the many other humans who are on this planet doing their best to navigate it at this point in time. When we're talking about soul plans, it was really beautiful because the clarity that came in around that is that we basically have over 8 billion people on this planet right now, which means there are over 8 billion individual courses happening on life on planet Earth right now, because none of us are going to see it the same way or have the same experience. And when we really start to allow ourselves to realize we're this divine being playing human for a little bit, we're allowing ourselves to be present in the lessons that we're learning, the emotions that we're experiencing, and grow and feed our soul. Sean, is there anything, can I talk a little bit about what we were talking about earlier before we logged on here, Sean?
Of course. Yes, please. Please do.
Yeah. So before we let everyone into the room, it was Sean and I and Ned and David. I had the all-star team with me. So we were talking a little bit about an experience that Sean had recently that was somewhat traumatizing. And I'm sure when he's ready, he'll share. But here was the thing that Spirit was bringing up. Our lessons in life, we can usually figure out what they're meant to be when we start to look for the patterns. So look for the repeating patterns in your life. My sister, always dating the same kind of guy. Okay, what does her soul want to learn from this energy, right? Or from this existence? And so when we start looking for the patterns, they lead us to the lessons, and they tend to be the big soul lessons or part of the ones that we came here for. We have multiple lessons that we're gonna experience in this lifetime, just like we have multiple purposes. But the underlying theme is always, how do I do this in a place of love? And one of the things I didn't get to share with Sean was a few weeks ago, Spirit came in and said, notice, fear roars at us, right? So if you watch the news, if you're whatever you're doing, the fear is roaring at you. Fear is loud. Fear is scary. Intuition whispers. So you have to pay attention to the whispers, right? The quiet voice that is saying, Don't do that. Take the right turn, not the left turn. Bring this person into your life. Keep going. Don't look back. Pay attention to the whispers. That is your divine, GPS system right there, helping to guide you to the life that you are truly meant to live. Sean, do you want to ask some questions, or where would you like to go?
Yeah. So yeah, I just love your wisdom. And I think I have to first say how admirable, like how much I admire you for everything that you've been through. And, raising your kids and, being a single mother and then going through unimaginable, when your partner commits suicide. I just can't even imagine how difficult that must be. And then it was like 2 weeks later that you went to the IANDS DC conference, right?
Yeah.
Like how does somebody do that? That is amazing. So I really want to honor you, first of all, for just your perseverance, and that you've come here, you have a message, and you're not going to let anything stopping you from delivering your message. So I really want to honor you with that first.
Oh, thank you, Sean. I appreciate that so much. I want to comment on that IANDS conference. So it was 2 weeks after Gary had passed, and I remember thinking that it was like asking me to climb Mount Everest. How am I gonna even pack my suitcase? I felt like I didn't even know my name at that point in time. And I remember laying in bed crying, and I remember thinking, well, I can either go to this conference and maybe help someone, or I can stay in bed and cry. I guess I better start packing, because that is true love, right? And it's not just love of myself and love of Gary, but it's love of humanity. And it's truly my love of wanting to see every single one of these amazing people on here tonight live their best life, and know that, just because I'm a spiritual person doesn't mean that it's easy, because this life isn't easy. But if I can do it, you can do it. And if I can navigate it and I can find joy again, you can too. And this is your God-given right, being a soul, having this human experience.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. And that is so true, that I'm just amazed. I'm so amazed at how you don't let this stuff get you down. And that, I mean, it does, but it doesn't stop you from your purpose. And that that you have a message and you're here to help. And in spite of the continued challenges that happen, you don't stop from your purpose. You don't take a break. And I just have to honor you, because that is really beyond admiration for me. So every time I look at you and spend time with you, I'm like, wow, like she's like the Energizer bunny. Like no matter what happens, she just gets back up and she keeps doing with her message. So I just think that's so amazing. I did want to, one of the first things you said that was kind of interesting, is you were talking about how your equilibrium was off. And the reason I'm asking that is, if you've ever walked with me, my equilibrium is still off. Like, I don't know how to get it back. So what is your recommendation for NDEs and stuff? How do we get our equilibrium back? Because it seems like that's a challenge for a lot of us.
Yeah, it really is. And let's talk about this in a couple of ways, because we're looking, if you've had an NDE, you're trying to get your equilibrium back spiritually, emotionally, mentally, and physically. Because coming from the other realm where you're light as a feather, there's light and love and there's no density, and then dropping back onto the planet, it's trying to find your balance in all areas of your life. Physically, one of the things that really will help are grounding techniques. If you put your feet on the ground, or if you're laying in bed and you see yourself rooting into the earth and really giving yourself that time to soak in, seeing this dizziness in your head drain through your body into Mother Earth to be recycled into something better. I would say that is very important on the physical aspect. The other part is the emotional and mental aspect. So if we've had an NDE, you are spinning, you are coming back, and you might be saying everything that I thought was true is not true anymore, or this life is a dream, this life isn't even real. We all signed up to play these parts, right? So it creates this equilibrium in the whole area of your life. What I want to say about that is take bite-sized pieces of it, right? There is no, you don't have to digest it all right now. Just like when we have something traumatic or very exciting happen to us, sometimes it has to be revealed and digested over time. So allowing ourselves to find the balance. One of the things that I like to talk about, and this came up today on a woman, in a woman that I was reading with. Sometimes people find challenges because maybe they were very religious before their NDE, and then they come back and they think, oh, I thought that religion was the way, but now I have this other information. As a medium, that doesn't have to create, the spinning energy for you, because it all works together. We are all connected to the same source. I think of God, source of the divine, as kind of like the hub on a bicycle tire. Every spoke leads to the hub, but there are different opportunities and ones for you to take. So really allowing yourself to ground in physically, but also mentally and emotionally, and be where you are. One of the biggest gifts that we can receive is to see this life with awe and wonder again. Because what happens is by the time you hit 20, 25, 30, we're already getting jaded in life, and maybe quite a bit earlier, depending on the life experience that you've had. But the more awe and wonder and magic that you look for in life, the more you're going to find. This is like, it's a little bit like Google. You know how you can Google whatever you want and it'll tell you basically what you want to hear, depending on the viewpoint you want to take on it? This life will show you what you want. If you're looking for more love, more compassion, more amazing people, look for that in the world. Don't look for the challenges, the bad things, the wars, all of that. It doesn't mean that they're not happening. But one of the things that's very clear to me is that each of our souls are a spark of light, a spark of the divine. We are here to anchor the light into this world. If I'm going to live in fear, then the energy I'm living in is feeding the fear. If I'm going to choose to live in peace or joy or love or see the light in the world, then the energy that I'm feeding is the peace, joy, love, and light in the world, right? It doesn't mean that everything's perfect, because it's not. We're on planet Earth. We're here for the contrast, but I do have a choice in which energy I choose to feed.
Oh, wonderful. So, actually, I have two questions now based on this. So, first of all, how do you have compassion for yourself? So, you've had 3 NDEs, you've had your shared NDEs, and your partner, the love of your life, commits suicide. And you're helping other people, you have all these messages for other people, and for whatever reason this didn't come to you. How are you compassionate with yourself? What can those of us, because we all have these experiences where there's stuff we're not supposed to know,
Yeah.
and as much as we think we're supposed to know, we're not, and so then we're blindsided like that. How 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 have you healed? How have you had compassion for yourself? How can the rest of us, who, because we're all, we may be psychic or whatever, but there's a lot of stuff we're not going to know, and
Right.
when it happens, it's going to be traumatic. So how did you heal? How did you have compassion for yourself? And what can the rest of us do when something like that happens?
Yeah, that is a great question. So compassion for ourselves, compassion for myself, it shows up in different ways depending on the day. Some days it might be like I need a 20-minute nap. Some days it might be I need to go to bed early. Sometimes it might be I need to go cry, right? Compassion can be all of these things. But one of the things that I've really become aware of is that there are things in this life we're not supposed to know. This is a message that I have delivered as a medium to people. I've had people ask me, how did I not know my son was going to pass from suicide in their senses because you weren't supposed to know. So being able to work as a medium and hear it in a part that I'm not connected to I was able to bring it into the fact that I wasn't supposed to know. If I was, I might have been able to prevent it, but I also might not have been. It would have been delayed. But the way that spirit works, if there had been an opportunity to prevent it, it would have been prevented, right? So compassion for ourselves shows up in a million ways, right? And I want to say it's little things to big things. One of the biggest tools that I had for compassion for myself was early on. It might have even been the night I found out. One of my friends came to me and she had had a son who transitioned from brain cancer. And she literally grabbed me by the shoulders, looked me in the eye and said, Michelle, don't go down the rabbit holes. You will never be able to beat them. And I was like, what? And she said, no would haves, no should haves, no could haves. She said, you will never be able to beat the rabbit hole, which is true if you think about it. Compassion for ourselves is saying, I'm not going down the rabbit hole. And she said, every time that you want to do that, she said, you literally need to stop and say, I am so grateful that I had the opportunity to love Gary and to feel his love. And there were moments that I would literally be facing towards, one direction, and I would have to turn my body and shift. So literally shifting the physical energy to be able to say this. But compassion for yourself is not going down the rabbit hole, because there is no would have, should have, could have that was going to change it or make my healing journey easier, right? The other thing that I want to say about compassion is that one of my other dear friends said to me, maybe 5 weeks after Gary passed, she said, what does healing look like to you? And I remember just crying and saying, I would just like to be able to get through the grocery store without like sobbing. You're like, oh, there are the tomatoes, and you just lose it. And there's no good reason, right? You know what I mean? And I remember saying to her, I would just like to be able, and she looked at me and she said, I know you can do that. It's coming. But so another great tool for compassion is, what does healing look like for you? At that moment, it was just to get through the grocery store without crying. At some point that day came, and then I was able to say, what does healing look like for me now? Okay, maybe I'm ready to go to a friend's birthday party. I might cry, but maybe I'm at least ready to go, right? But so giving ourselves kind of these benchmarks. The other thing that really helped me have compassion for myself was knowing that he was okay and that he is in this amazing realm, loving me, cheering me on, wanting me to do my best and show up and not miss a moment to smile, laugh, or love. And when you know that is true of your loved ones on the other side, you're not just living your life for you, you're living it for them, because the tribute to him or me or us that we were is, how do I show up and help others live their best life too as they're moving through their own trauma and their grief?
Yeah, that's so beautiful. Do you feel that you and Gary have you figured out your soul contract with him? Have you figured out what you're here to teach each other?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Because with him, he came into my life at a time and showed me love that I didn't even know was possible, that I had never felt or received. And that was huge, because in all of the NDEs, the lesson is always love, right? So I literally got to feel a type of love that I didn't know before. My soul agreement with him, he stayed longer to be able to experience our relationship, because he also was able to have a type of love with me that he hadn't experienced before. And then the soul agreement went into the next part, where it was like, if he chose to leave that way, I would find a way to help other people move through these tragedies and grief in a different way that was going to be easier and maybe more acceptable for them, right?
Yeah. So do you feel that is your soul contract done? Like, did you come here for this moment in time to heal, together, to teach each other certain lessons, and then it's done? Or is this something that's going on, would you say?
You know what? That is a great question. I'm so glad that you asked that. The answer is my soul contract with him is still going on. So, death, whether it's a friend, family, relative, dog, whoever it is, your boss at work, it doesn't necessarily end the soul contract because there is still communication, connection, love, and agreements that are continuing on. So, it's really interesting. When we were at IANDS in Chicago, and getting to be up on the main stage, that just felt like such a blessing to be able to share this story. I could literally feel him standing behind me on the stage, right? So, and it wasn't just because I'm a medium, it was because we can feel the love of our loved ones on the other side still. And knowing that his soul agreement with me was like, kind of like he always did. He opened every door for me, whether it was the car door or the restaurant door or whatever. He was always opening doors and he always had my back. And I feel like he is still continuing on with that beautiful contract.
I love that. That is so amazing. Um, so how about many people have different beliefs about suicide.
Hmm.
And some say, oh, you're just gonna have to do it over again, or some say, well, you were done with what you needed to do here. What do you feel your understanding is with Gary about his suicide?
Yeah. So that's the one that I will speak to because I haven't, if I've read for someone and I can tap into their loved one's energy, I can get more information about it, but I will just speak with Gary's. He did not have to leave by suicide. So he did have, it was very likely, but it wasn't 100% in his soul plan. Here's the thing, when we transition by suicide, so we are really meant to stay here and finish our life out naturally. I'm just going to say that for anyone who might have any question. All of heaven is rooting for you to stay and complete your soul purpose and mission and plan for this lifetime. He has soul agreements that were not completed. He had agreements probably with souls that he still hadn't met in this lifetime. He had agreements with his daughters, his sister, with myself, with other people, right? So now he's in heavenly realm trying to understand how he's going to fulfill all of these agreements and contracts that he has with these people on planet Earth and doing his best. It's not that he wasn't met with light and love and compassion and understanding, but it's not like the stage doesn't go black and there's no more work to be done. There is still work to be done. He will never be forced to come back to planet Earth. So I want to talk about this for people who believe in reincarnation. Our souls are not forced to be here. So our souls choose to be here, as I've talked about earlier. But not only that, because of that, we're not ever forced to come. So we are always allowed the opportunity to come to this school of planet Earth and learn and grow in the contrast and the challenges of it, but we're never forced to be here. So at some point, I believe he will come back to have more experiences and maybe complete some lessons that he didn't complete, but it's not because he's being punished or forced. It would be a true soul decision on his part.
That's very helpful for many people to know because, as you know, so many people are suffering from suicide, of a family member. But at the end of the day, they're not being punished, right?
Right.
There's no punishment. They just didn't complete maybe what they came here to complete. They will complete it at a later date when they're ready, but that's it, right? No punishment.
Totally. I like to think about it kind of like high school graduation, right? So you can drop out of high school, but you can still show up at graduation. You don't get handed your diploma, right? But you can still go to the after party. You can still watch your friends walk across stage. Like you still get to show up. You can still be part of it, but the lesson hasn't officially been completed. And when that soul is ready, they'll probably choose to come back and learn it in a different way. And maybe it will be in a completely different life that they're going to choose that. I mean, maybe they're going to choose to be a different gender, or maybe they're going to have a lot of different circumstances around it. And the reason that I will say this is because in that third NDE, I remember being in the heavenly realm. I remember them telling me about the trauma that was coming, but truly, I was not really prepared for it in the way that you would have thought I was. right? Knowing that things were coming and things were going to be hard. It's different when you're here on planet Earth. This is like boots on the ground energy versus playing the video game, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I found, even though I've had lots of warnings and, guidance to be prepared, no, I've never been prepared. Uh, like I just, at the end of the day, wing it. So, hold on a sec. My my notes just kind of disappeared. Give me just a second.
What were you saying about winging it just now? You're like, I have to wing it. There we go. The universe is like, yes, you do.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So I think many people want to have NDEs. As you know, you meet people, they're like, oh, you're so lucky that you had this NDE and you've had these spiritual experiences, and they really think it's glamorous, right? Like we're so much more in touch. And maybe you could speak about that, because it's anything but, right? I mean, we have this amazing spiritual connection with the other side, which is beyond incredible. But we still have all these pains and these traumas of this earthly life that affect us. And as you've already discussed, we're not supposed to know everything. It's in sometimes, like in my case, I get a lot more information about other people than me.
Right.
And so it's like, yeah, I can tell you what's in the plans for you. But when it comes to me, it's like sometimes. So how do you navigate that? And what do you have to say for the people? Because there are many people, as you know, they wish they could have an NDE or these experiences. How do we explain to them it's not all unicorns and rainbows? Like it can be wonderful, but it can also be a deeper level of trauma, like, I mean, when we're given the chance to come back, it seems like they always tell us it's not going to be easy. It's going to be hard.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say this, don't have an NDE. It is definitely the hard way. Certainly don't have two or three or more. I mean, that's kind of ridiculous. What I would tell you is your ability, no matter who you are, to connect with spirit, loved ones, life guides, angels, God, source, the divine is innately within you. All of our souls are whole on the other side. And all of us being here in this body right now, we have that spark of light, which is our ability to connect to God, source, the divine, angels, loved ones, life guides, on and on and on, all for ourselves. So what you're really wanting to do is you're really wanting to strengthen your muscle or do your exercises to be able to connect on your own. Start looking into HemiSync, look at binaural beats, find ways to, help your brain settle down so that you can connect. Do meditation, go for a run, take the hot bath, whatever these aha quiet moments are for you, you're wanting to expand on that. So I think about this a little bit like math. Most of us can, manage our finances okay, or we can balance our checkbook, whatever that is, but not everyone's going to be a physicist. So for me, I'm at the physicist level of mediumship or whatever. I'm very spiritually connected in that way. But it doesn't mean that everybody is meant to be at that level. What we want is we want to be able to access the intuition and the connection enough to navigate our own life in the best way possible. And that is truly available to each of us, because no matter how broken your life feels right now, or you look, or you think you are right now, your soul is whole and your soul is connected to source. You cannot disconnect. Even if you choose to leave by suicide, you're not disconnecting from source. You're disconnecting from planet Earth and you're going right back to source, right? So you cannot disconnect from that. And what you're really wanting then is to find the ways to help you take a class, take a course, take a meditation, learn to, take mediumship courses to expand your own gifts. But they are already there. And there are a lot of ways that are much easier to do it than an NDE.
Yep. And, I think of suicide and so forth as incomplete. I don't know if anyone here ever took an incomplete in high school, but I did. And it's like, doesn't mean you're not going to have to do it, but you've just taken a time out. And okay, so I'm going to go through some questions that other people have put
Okay.
in the chat. And please, everyone, stick your questions in the chat. And sorry about that. My computer did something weird. Go ahead and put your questions in the chat. And then, so we're going to start with any thoughts from Michelle on how to deal with past life memories that are bedeviling one's thinking in this life, e.g., guilt and shame and lack of confidence.
Yeah. Okay. So that is a big one. And I would tell you, absolutely do a past life regression with somebody who is very good at this to help you go back there and clear these memories or the energy around them. Okay. Here's one of the things that I want to talk about if we're talking past life memories. You have to remember your soul's already had that experience. It's already been completed. There's already been a life review or a life understanding. I wish we had used the word understanding, because review makes you feel like you're getting graded on it and you're not. But you've already reconciled this on a soul level. So what you're wanting to do is you're wanting to go back in with somebody who is going to regress you into that, so that you can actually realize each one of the players in that lifetime, and I say players meaning souls that were in that lifetime with you, again, had a soul plan, had a purpose, had lessons that they wanted to learn. And so instead of seeing this as bad or good, you're seeing it as an experience.
Great answer. And I will also add, based on what I experienced in the last couple of weeks, is what I found is that past life memories can come up in this life, and we find ourselves, like I did in Charleston, South Carolina, literally like in the past. And I had an experience that was certainly here now, but the trauma and what I was dealing with was from the past.
Right.
So it was interesting. I wasn't dealing with the present trauma. I was dealing with all of the past from it, from similar situations. And so what I would share is that anytime we're in these experiences, whatever the trauma is, it's always an opportunity for healing. Whether it is something from a past life or, this life, if it's coming up, it's coming up for healing, right?
Yeah. It is. And that goes back to earlier, we were talking about love and compassion. How do I love myself through this? How do I love myself through this trauma, this idea, this thought, this experience? Right. And letting it really be what it is and honor yourself through that journey.
And that's all key. Like you just said, that's the whole key, right? Just love yourself through it.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Yes. There's really no other answer, I think. Yeah. So by the way, you guys, chat's not disabled. You just send the messages to me and the co-host, just not to everybody else. So you can send your messages that way. And then so we can give Michelle. Okay, so okay, so somebody here has a partner who also committed suicide and transitioned by suicide. And she says, I know we're still connected and we're working hard to keep up our partnership. How can I help from here with his incomplete lessons?
I love that. That's a great question. And what I will tell you that I found with myself and Gary is that the more I allowed myself to heal, the more it helped him to almost be a little bit more open to other information that might be coming into him in heavenly realm. And so really what you're wanting to do to help your loved one in spirit is continue to live life to its fullest, allow yourself to heal, because they're going to get to learn some of their lessons by watching you, right? And it doesn't mean that every day is going to be great, but as you allow yourself to heal, maybe they're learning resilience in spirit world, right? Maybe a resilience that they didn't have if they chose to leave by suicide, right? But they're going to learn through what you're doing. They are going to be able to have a very similar experience because you are so quantumly entangled with your partner, right? When it's a partner, a family member, a child, we are very much quantumly entangled with them. And so what you're really doing is that you're allowing yourself to continue on with this process that you're having, but that allows them the ability to grow, live, and learn still through you. That vicarious type of energy.
That's such a beautiful answer because I really feel like, yeah, these relationships continue beyond the bell. And many people think, oh no, it's done. And I've heard a lot of mediums that say you're holding them back and all this like crazy stuff, which I want you to answer to that in a second.
Yes.
Because in my experience, no, we are continually healing through the veil. And certainly me, in my experiences with my mother and loved ones, I mean, we've done more healing through the veil than we ever did in this physical world. So
Yeah.
what do you have to say about that?
Yeah. So first of all, when I have clients tell me that, it does. It makes me just like want to jump out of my skin for a minute because that is absolutely incorrect. We are putting human ideas on spirit world. And in case anyone doesn't know this, spirit world doesn't play by our human ideas. So here's the thing. You cannot anchor your loved one on the other side of the veil and keep them from learning and growing and healing and experiencing because you're talking to them all the time, because you're missing them, because you love them, because you're asking for signs. That is not how this works. It's not like if you're, holding someone hostage and you're like, you're not leaving. Spirit world is very capable of sending you signs, talking to you, loving you, being a part of your daily life, and still growing, evolving, learning, and moving through in spirit world. In human form, we are stuck in one place at a time because we are in this body. And right now we only know how to be one place at a time. That's not how it is in spirit world. So I just want to tell you, you're not going to hold your loved one back by asking for signs, connection, healing. And our loved ones on the other side are wanting us to heal. Whatever that looks like, they will bring in the people, places, and opportunities to help us really live the best life that is available to us.
Thank you. So we just need to reiterate any medium that tells you you're holding your loved ones back by trying to connect with them is
confused. We'll say confused.
Great. Perfect answer. So, because you're not, I mean, we really can heal all this stuff through the veil. And I am living proof, whether I never thought it was possible, but wow, it really can happen. And so thank you for saying that, because I hear that every once in a while. I mean, I'll hear these mediums saying, oh, you're not letting them move on, you're holding them back. And it's like, no, they can do more than one thing at a time.
Yeah, absolutely they can. And they want you to heal and they still want to be connected to you on your human journey. So even if you have, this idea that you have to let them go, okay, let them go. They're not letting you go. They're still connected to you until you get to the other side, and then you guys can figure out what you want to do from there.
Exactly. Totally. Okay. Okay, so sometimes I feel like someone's missing from my life, that we had a soul contract to meet and help each other. But for whatever reason, our paths haven't crossed yet. What's the backup plan for when the primary plan doesn't go according to plan? When somebody else step in to will somebody else step in to fulfill that role? Does my life plan have to change if they didn't have to do their parts?
Yeah. Okay. So there's a little bit of overthinking happening there. And it's okay, because that's what we do as humans. Here's what I will tell you. If we have a soul agreement with another soul, and it is one of these landmark moments in your life, like, for me with my kids, these three are going to be my kids. This is something that was etched in my blueprint, not changeable, going to happen. Then those souls are going to show up. So 60% of our life, between 60 and 70%, is etched in the blueprint before we come in, meaning that in these big occasions, you can't miss that. Now, the other 30 to 40% of it is free will. So we get to choose what we're going to do with that. If it is really someone that you're saying, like, no, I know this person is meant to be in my life, then 100% they're in that 60% of the blueprint that is etched in stone. It's going to happen. You might be anticipating their arrival before they're arriving on the scene because you have a soul memory, like, no, I know they should be here. Where are they? I'm looking for them. I'm feeling them. So you're anticipating them coming in because you have this soul memory that they're coming, but you just haven't met them in this human form yet.
Great answer. And in my experience, yeah, we may be soulmates, but not in this lifetime. Maybe a later lifetime, and it's not always meant to happen when we think it is.
Well, and let's take that the other way too, because we might meet someone who was a soulmate in a past lifetime, and we meet them again in this lifetime, and we're like, oh, there's something here. That doesn't mean it's meant to be that in this lifetime. It's just a soul recognition or a soul memory. You guys are friends or acquaintances or whatever, but it doesn't mean you're supposed to be passionate soulmates again. So really understanding that our soul does remember, right? Our soul remembers every lifetime, every connection, like for all of time, for all of your soul existence. Our humanness doesn't, but we get these little blips and these little excitements where we're like, oh, I feel like I know you. Okay. That doesn't mean we're supposed to be romantic.
I kind of just want you to repeat that because because it is so important. So many people, we all know, they're like, I know I have this soul, person, but they're with another guy. They're doing this other thing, but I know we're supposed to be together. Right. And so what is your advice for that?
So first of all, we've got to really dive into this a little bit more. We have soul families. So that means that there are souls that we like to incarnate with regularly, right? We have our key players on our team. Kind of think about it that way. We play different roles with each other in different lifetimes, depending on what it is that our soul wants to learn. So sometimes we will meet people, and sometimes it's very just innocent. You're like, you meet a new friend, you're like, oh my God, I feel like I've known you for 40 years. Like, how's this possible? It's been 4 minutes, right? Okay. Soul connection, soul family. There's obviously like a history on a soul level of lifetimes, of friendships, of sisterhood, whatever it is, right? Where you're connected. Sometimes we meet people and we're like, oh, wow, right? You get like that little like heartbeat skip, and you feel the little butterflies and all of that. That doesn't mean that you're not connecting with somebody who maybe was a soulmate or your person in another lifetime. But you need to really have almost a level of maturity and take a step back and say, okay, maybe, this person and I were very passionate in another lifetime. But is that really what's meant to happen in this lifetime? And really, usually the answer is no. Once in a while, there are there are those energies of the souls that will come back in for reconnections, for stories that didn't get to finish playing out in other lifetimes because of death or loss or whatever it is. And so we do have those happen. It's just be aware that you might run into more than one person in this lifetime who was a partner in another lifetime. It doesn't mean that's the relationship that's supposed to take place here.
Exactly.
And that's not to disappoint you, because I will tell you this, my understanding from spirit is that everybody has multiple soulmate opportunities in this time. So there's not just that one person.
Exactly. Thank you for saying that. It's not just one person out of everyone that
out of 1 million people, you have one shot at finding your person. That's not how spirit world works. You will have multiple soulmate opportunities that will come in, and then you get to choose which is the right one for you and which feels right and which is going to move ahead with the lifestyle that you want and that you're creating.
Yeah. And honestly, I had an experience like 5 years ago with somebody who I realized that we'd had this soul plan literally at least like 10,000 miles apart, different planets, different lives. It had been a long time searching for this person. And I met with this person, and what I found is every time we meet, we have this agreement, and something is supposed to happen. We're supposed to behave a certain way, and it hasn't happened yet. And it's going to keep happening. And so that's what I've learned is we have thousands of soul agreements, and we don't know what they're all for. But in my experience, most of them are not romantic. They're soul family, like you're saying, people that are here to teach us lessons, that are going to put the mirror in our face of where we're lacking in our progress. And so, yeah, it's really, I'm glad that you're, sharing that, because I think so many people just have this misperception that there's one soulmate that's going to change their whole life and it's going to be amazing.
Right. Absolutely. And I would even just say how many clients I have that were married to their soulmate, and their soulmate transitioned and they went on to a second marriage. And guess what? They're with their soulmate now. And so, yeah, there are multiple soulmates in our lifetime.
Yeah. And for me, my soulmate was the kind that Elizabeth Gilbert talks about in Eat, Pray, Love, where this is not the love of your life. This is the one that's going to shine a mirror in your face and show you everything that is holding you back and preventing you from living your soul purpose and your plan. And so it was literally just, it is not the love of your life, but it's the person who's going to show you everything that is wrong with the life you're living now and where you need to get for correction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, come on.
Okay, so let's see what else we have. What would you recommend for those moments when, in the middle of a spiritually transformative experience, you're pulled back with a flashback of grief, when you've lost a lot of people from the physical? So in a way, this is probably also kind of like what we were talking about a while ago, when we're taken back to a point of trauma in our lives.
Right. Let's just talk about when we're looking for our loved ones in spirit, right? So a lot of times as humans, we are focusing on the absence or the lack of. There is the chair they always used to sit in. There is, right? We're looking for, there's where they used to sit every day and watch the sunrise. So we're looking at the absence of them. What we're wanting to do is focus on the presence of them, because they are still present. So when you're having a spiritually transformative experience like that, what's happening is your loved ones are almost like pulling you, coaxing you into this, spiritual realm where you are going to feel them, where you are going to be like, oh, I feel their love. I feel their presence. I feel the connection to me. What happens then is sometimes our human mind says, oh, I'm grieving them, I'm missing them, and then we almost like jerk ourselves back into our body. What I want you to do is I want you to breathe through the grief and allow yourself to go and float and be in the energy that they're calling you to, because our loved ones are always saying, I'm right here, I'm surrounding you, I want to give you love, I want to give you peace, I want to give you joy. But we have to look for their presence in our life to be able to receive that, not their absence.
That is a perfect answer. It really is. It
Thanks.
is. Yes. Okay. So I was working on my intuition through being trained in healing touch and medical intuition. Then, with multiple surgeries from an accident, I fanatically went into survival mode and left my spiritual path. Now, being older, I so much, much want to return to being intuitive. Is it too late? And can I get back to it?
That is a great question. It's very heartfelt. I can feel the emotion and the energy in that. And it's never too late. So, for any of us that are wanting to experience healing energy or spiritual expansion or reconnection with loved ones in spirit, that energy is always available to us. So, I'm going to tell you no, and it's probably easier now than ever because there are so many online courses and opportunities and things that you could do. If you are feeling called to something, no matter who you are and where you are in this world, know that usually that calling or the things that excite you or bring you passion, that is really a message from your soul. It's your soul just kind of tapping you on the shoulder saying, remember this, we want this experience. And so I will tell you, it's not too late. And I'm really excited for you to do it because I can feel the joy and expression that will come from you as you reconnect with this.
Yes, it's never too late. As long as we're in a body, we're here to learn.
Thank you.
And so never, ever, ever is it too late. And I see so many people, they're like, I'm 90, I'm set in my ways, I can't learn. And that's not true. I have friends right now in their 80s that they thought their whole life was just perfect and they had all the money in the world and everything was settled. And guess what? It all went crazy. And they're, and they are now having these spiritually transformative experiences where they are forced to realize, yeah, this material stuff doesn't mean anything. So it's never too late. As long as we're in the body, we're here to learn. So never give up. And those of us, Michelle, me, all the other NDEs in the group, we're here to still learn. Yeah, we're here to help other people, but we are all here to learn as well. So never think it's too late or you're too old or you're too set in your ways. None of that's true, for sure. So, okay, so this is kind of, you've kind of talked about it, but it's important to reiterate. So somebody, do our deep soul connections who are now on the other side, able to guide us to love interest, meant for us. Are they able to be a part of it? I was in love with my soulmate that passed. One was a best friend soulmate who passed. Are they helping me find my love?
Yeah. That's a great question. And the short answer is yes. So our loved ones on the other side, whether they were your romantic partner, your best friend, your mom, your child, whoever it was in your life, grandma, grandpa, your dog, I mean, and really whatever soul connections you have are on the other side cheering you to live a full life. So when I say that, yes, they are helping guide you to the person that's going to be a right match for you. But let's talk about this for a minute. earth too. So although they are guiding us and giving us some opportunities, usually there's a little bit of work we have to do on our side. So for anyone who watches me on my Mondays with Michelle, when I'm answering questions on my YouTube live, a lot of times the questions come in about soulmates, when am I going to find my person, and all of those things. It's a very normal question to have. The first thing is we need to be a vibrational match for what it is that we're wanting to attract. So if you want to attract somebody who's very happy and cheerful and whole and healthy, guess what? You need to be happy and cheerful and whole and healthy. Otherwise, you're going to attract a vibrational match for where you are. So a lot of times the work has to start within first to be able to bring in the soulmate that we're wanting. Don't kid yourself. Your loved ones in spirit are lining up opportunities for you. They want this for you. They want you to live a whole, healthy life if this is what you want. But there is work that we have to do on our end of the deal. We have free will on this human, side of it. And that means that our perspective tends to be our free will in action. And what I mean by that is, I have so many clients who are like, I'm ready for my soulmate to come in. That's awesome. What are you doing? Well, nothing. I don't leave the house. I'm not on dating apps. I don't communicate with anyone. Okay, well, we're gonna have to put a little bit of effort into this. You know what I mean? They don't just usually show up on your door with a bouquet of flowers or whatever this is. So we have free will, which means if you are ready to start bringing in your soulmate or your next soulmate, no matter where you are in this process, that's amazing. And that's a beautiful gift. And you're going to have to allow your heart to open. You're going to have to allow yourself to feel safe, and you're going to have to allow yourself to re-engage with life. And a lot of times that's the challenge, because people are like, well, I want that, but I don't want to have to do anything for that. So yes, your loved ones on the other side are wanting to line up opportunities, but you're going to have to leave the house to meet some of these opportunities.
Yeah. It's funny that you're saying, yeah, Ned and I talked about that on our car trip. Like literally.
Did.
Yes.
Are you guys going to leave the house, or you're not going to leave the house? Did you decide?
Well, yeah, I have to leave the house. So that's why we're on the road for 5 weeks. Like, send it out to the universe and let the universe help. And, there is that saying, God only helps those that helps themselves.
Yeah.
And that's how I have lived.
Right.
And that's what I believe. Yeah. So you can't sit here and say, where's my soulmate as you're hiding under the covers.
Exactly. I want to bring up one more thing too, because we kind of touched on this before a lot of times people look around, and I hear this with women all the time. There are no good men left. There are no good men left in the world. All the good ones are married or dead. That's it. There are none. Right. And I want to tell you, ladies, or gentlemen, whoever you are, don't do that, because what happens then is, earlier we talked about, you'll find what you're looking for. So you're going to find evidence to prove yourself right on that. When I was in between Gary's, passing and moving into where I am today, I would look around and I would see, and this is the honest God's truth, there were so many amazing men. It did not mean they were men that I was going to date at all. But I look at you, I look at Ned, I looked at my friends' husbands, I looked at men that were peers, and I thought, what an amazing man. What an amazing man. It didn't mean I was romantically interested in them or it was going to turn into that. But one of the gifts of that was that I just showed myself that there are so many amazing men in this world. So I just want to give you guys this little hint, because don't tell yourself that all the good ones are married or dead, because it's not a true story.
Yeah, totally. And that's what I learned after my NDE, is that we speak the word. In the beginning, there was the word, Paul Selig, I am word, and that's in the Bible. And so when we say things I'm never going to find, we're actually speaking the word into existence. We are making spells, or whatever you want to call it, when we say those things.
We're creating our life, right? And sometimes I have clients that are in deep, deep, deep grief, and they will say, I will never be happy again. I will never love again. And I understand that is part of the grief process. Sometimes we have to feel that way for a while, right? But I also want to give you guys the encouragement to give yourself room to grow through those ideas too. Because the truth is, our souls want us to be able to embody the fullest expression of who we can be in this lifetime while we're here. And usually that means there's a lot. That means there's friendships, there's jobs, there's romantic partners, there's pets. A full expression of ourselves and our soul has a lot of moving parts and pieces to it, but that's when we find ourselves being really happy.
Totally. And so I learned with my occupational therapy and physical therapy, because I have ankle issues. And so I was doing my occupational therapy as I was relearning how to walk and everything. And I made a comment, I have bad ankles. And the occupational therapist, she nailed it on the head. And she's like, your body is listening to you. You are speaking words into creation by saying that.
Yeah.
And it really has changed me. So, yeah. So we do need to be careful of the words that we are saying. But as we are coming to a close, I would like you to tell us about your new book that I've been so excited to help share with the world. And would you just tell us a little bit about the 101 ways to set your soul on fire, and get a little bit of wisdom for people so that they could pick it up and learn from your wisdom?
Yeah, absolutely. So I love this book. I think of it as kind of like daily messages. These were messages that I started channeling after the passing of Gary. So when I was really in a dark, heavy space in my life, but I was looking to spirit, guide me, give me connection, bring me back into this realm, this world. What am I meant to do here? And so this book is really just heartfelt messages from spirit that a lot of people kind of use as a daily message. And I really love that, but it's to remind us of our greater purpose, and that we are meant to be here on this planet at this point in time. And no matter what your message is or your purpose is, it's not too big and it's going to happen. You cannot fail this life, and you need to really know that. So I'm also really excited to announce that on November 1st, I am coming out with 111 angel messages, which is a similar book with daily messages. I have a memoir that is being completed at the end of the month, so that's coming out. And also, if you go to my YouTube page and you subscribe, you'll see a little under the post thing. I'm going to be giving away 2 15-minute one-on-one readings, and that drawing will be held on November 1st. That is the 14-year anniversary of my third NDE. So it's a big day for me, and I'm looking forward to just celebrating it. This human life, it is meant to be celebrated. It does not mean that it's easy. You all came here with challenges, traumas, hardships, things that happen to you. But this life is meant to be celebrated, and you are capable of healing if you let yourself do the work and receive the love that you need. So I'm really excited to share this stuff. Please also go to my events page. There's a humanities team global summit coming up. You can sign up for free through the link on my page. There's some amazing speakers, but this world needs all the light that it can get right now. And so I want you all to share your light, and the better you can feel, the happier you are, the better it is for all of us.
Oh, wow. Thank you. I just am so grateful for you, and that we're friends, and just amazed at how much love and wisdom you're sharing with the world. Many people in your situation would have shut down, and you didn't. You're like I said, the Energizer Bunny. You keep going. And it's such an honor how much you're helping everyone with your wisdom. And so I just complete gratitude for you.
Oh, thank you, Sean. I have so much gratitude for you, our friendship, and for the space that you hold so that we can all come together and share these experiences and continue to lift each other up.
Yeah, truly an honor. So please, everybody, check out Michelle's new book. It's an amazing book, and And I just love you so much. And
Yeah, I love you too. I
so,
guess I will see you at IANDS in Seattle next year, right?
yes, we will. So everybody who didn't come to IANDS Chicago, plan for Seattle, because it'll be fun. I mean, for those of you who have not been, it's like literally being with your soul family, your tribe. How would you describe it, Michelle? Like it's,
Absolutely. You just walk in and there's no strangers. It's like you feel like you know everyone. You have that at home feeling, whether people have had an NDE or not. The openness, the love, the communication, the connection. You're going to make some lifelong friends. I can guarantee you that.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Aloha, everyone. Thank you so much, Michelle, and keep us informed on everything you're doing. And I'm excited to hear about your next books that are coming out. And everyone, have a wonderful night. And please join us at the sharing group. And then on October 28th with Kimberly Meredith, it's going to be amazing. Experience connecting with our guides and our loved ones. And so love you all. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening.